Well, I must say that it was an interesting platform that the Ron DeSantis decided to launch. There were some problems early on, but it seems as if that the space is going now. I do hope that the glitch is not an omen for his campaign. Ron DeSantis is an interesting public figure. I've said all along, even going back to 2020, that I don't think that Ron DeSantis would be be a formidable GOP nominee against any Democrat, particularly in this case, Joe Biden. Um, Up against Donald Trump, he has a very hard time. We've seen over the months, even despite the fact that Donald Trump has had indictments and there have been other things happening with cases that he's involved in, Donald Trump's numbers have actually gone up. So the gap between Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump has gotten so far that it might be just impossible for Ron DeSantis to actually close that gap. But we'll see. I don't think that Ron DeSantis really has a chance in the primary, but it's a primary. Voters get to decide.
DeSantis, for all of you can say about him, he's not a foolish man. He's not a dumb man. He's got the credentials to prove it in the academic pedigree. He served a couple terms in Congress. He knows his way around Washington, and Florida has become kind of the exemplar, the test lab for a lot of Republican policies going forward towards 2024. The problem that he's got is, even though he's the thinking man's Trump, for lack of a better way to describe him, not a lot of Republican primary voters want a thinking man's Trump. They want the real deal. They don't want a pale imitation, except no substitutes. I think he's got a really good shot at making some noise, but I think part of the problem is that his appearance on Twitter tonight was kind of a metaphor. It wasn't necessarily an omen so much as a metaphor, as kind of a glitchy campaign that looked good and sounded good and was a good idea on paper, but when the rubber meets the road, it really kind of tends to fall apart. And keep in mind, we've also been here before. I mean, I'm thinking about Rick Perry, who was at one point hailed as the next shining light of Republican politics. Jeb Bush, coming strong early out of the gate in Florida, stumbles into the stretch because he ran into Donald Trump. Even Bobby Jindal, if we're going way back, thinking about him as a Republican shining light. We've got all these people that have great potential, southern state governors with a lot of governing, a lot of star power, and they just don't cut it against somebody like Donald Trump. So I think the case will probably be the same here. Plenty of time, anything can happen. A year is a lifetime in politics and no time at all. So I think it's up to Ron DeSantis to determine whether or not he can course correct, get some of these early flaws and mistakes out of the way, and make a strong challenge to Trump for the nomination.